I didn't stop my husband from marrying another woman. I helped him. I chose the wedding date. I approved the venue. I even helped her try on the dress. People thought I was insane. My friends whispered that I had lost my mind. My family begged me to fight. But I just smiled. Because what they didn't know was this. That wedding was never about love. It was about timing. You see, my husband didn't just betray me. He tried to erase me. He transferred assets behind my back. He signed papers he thought I'd never read. He planned to walk away with everything and leave me with nothing. So I let him believe he had won. I let him think I was weak, confused, broken. I watched him fall in love with another woman while still legally married to me. I watched her call herself his future. I watched them plan a life that was built on lies. And I did nothing. Until the day of the wedding. When the officiant asked for signatures. When the documents were finalized. When they smiled for the cameras thinking it was the happiest day of their lives. That's when my plan reached its final step. Because by the time the ceremony ended, I didn't lose a husband. I gained control. Of his money. His name. And his freedom. This isn't a story about jealousy. This isn't a story about forgiveness. This is a story about patience. And what happens when a woman stops reacting and starts calculating. Don't skip. Because the next part explains why that wedding destroyed them both. People always ask me the same question. Why didn't you stop him? As if stopping him was ever the hard part. The truth is, I could have stopped the wedding with one phone call. One lawyer. One scream. One scene. But I didn't. Because by the time I found out about the other woman, my marriage was already over. I just hadn't buried it yet. My husband, Victor, and I had been married for 11 years. From the outside, we looked solid. Stable jobs. A nice house. No children but plans. Always plans. What people didn't see was how slowly he disappeared. First, the late nights. Then the quiet dinners. Then the way he stopped arguing, because arguing means you still care. The day I knew something was wrong was the day I accidentally opened an email that wasn't meant for me. A bank notification. A transfer request. 6 figures. To an account I didn't recognize. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He smiled, softly, almost kindly, and said, "I'm just organizing things." That was the moment I realized he thought I was stupid. I hired a lawyer the next morning. Not to divorce him. To understand him. And that's when I learned the truth. Victor had been preparing for months. Moving assets. Changing beneficiaries. Rewriting ownerships under shell companies. He wasn't leaving me. He was escaping me. With everything. Then came her. Her name was Lena. Young. Elegant. Careful. She didn't stalk him. She didn't demand anything. She waited. That's how I knew she was dangerous. I saw them together one afternoon at a cafe. Not touching. Not flirting. Planning. 2 people who already believed they had won. That night, Victor told me he wanted a divorce. Not gently. Not apologetically. Strategically. He laid it out like a business proposal. And then he said the sentence that changed everything. "I'm remarrying. Soon." That's when I understood something critical. If I fought him now, I would lose. Because he had already moved the board. And I was reacting too late. So instead of panicking, I agreed. I told him I wanted an amicable separation. That I didn't want drama. That I was tired. I let him believe I had given up. That was my first move. A week later, he told me about the wedding. He expected anger. I smiled. "Do you need help planning?" I asked. He looked at me like I had finally broken. But inside, something else was happening. Because in agreeing to that wedding, I wasn't surrendering. I was positioning myself exactly where I needed to be. Close enough to sign. Close enough to witness. Close enough to win. They thought the wedding was the end of my story. They were wrong. It was the beginning of theirs. Lena didn't know who I really was when we first met. Victor introduced me as my ex. Not wife. Not still legally married. Just ex. And I let him. Because the first rule of winning is this. Never correct someone who underestimates you. Lena was polite. Careful. Almost too careful. She shook my hand with both of hers and said, "I hope this isn't awkward." "It's not," I replied honestly. "I'm happy for you." That was the first lie she believed. A week later, she texted me. "Hi, Victor said you offered to help with the wedding. I don't really have anyone else." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Of course. I'd be glad to. Because saying yes cost me nothing. and saying no would have closed a door I needed open. The bridal shop smelled like roses and expensive lies. Lena stepped out in the first dress and looked at herself in the mirror, hands shaking slightly. "What do you think?" she asked me. I studied her reflection. She was beautiful, nervous, in love, and completely unaware that she was standing inside a trap. "It's not you," I said gently. "Try something cleaner, something confident." She trusted me instantly. That was her mistake. As the fittings went on, she talked. People always talk when they think they're safe. She told me how Victor made her feel chosen. How he said his marriage had been dead for years. How he promised her a clean future. I nodded, smiled, encouraged, and memorized every word. Then she asked the question I was waiting for. "Can I ask you something honestly?" "Of course. Why are you being so kind to me?" I met her eyes in the mirror and said the truth. Just not all of it. Because fighting never helped anyone. And because if he's chosen you, then you deserve to walk into it without guilt. Her eyes filled with tears. She hugged me. "I was so scared you'd hate me." I almost laughed. What Lena didn't know was that while she was choosing lace and silk, I was choosing timing. The dress she picked required a final fitting 2 days before the wedding, which meant final invoices, final confirmations, final signatures. And Victor, in his arrogance, had put my name where it still legally belonged. Spouse, co-owner, authorized signatory. That night, Victor asked me something he hadn't asked in years. "You're really okay with this?" I smiled at him over dinner. "Why wouldn't I be?" I said. "You're finally being honest." He relaxed. That was his second mistake. Because while he thought I had accepted the end, I was making sure every single piece of paper ended exactly where I wanted it. And Lena, she thought I was helping her become a bride. She had no idea. I was helping her become the witness to Victor's undoing. Victor had always trusted paperwork. That was the irony. He believed contracts protected him, that signatures meant control. That legal language was a shield only he knew how to use. He never imagined it could become a weapon in my hands. 2 weeks before the wedding, Victor called me late at night. "I need you to sign something," he said casually. "Just housekeeping." Housekeeping. That's what he called documents that moved hundreds of thousands of dollars. I didn't hesitate. "Of course. Send them over." He emailed the files an hour later. 3 documents. 47 pages. Dense legal language. And hidden inside them, carefully buried, was his mistake. Victor assumed I wouldn't read them. After all, I'd been cooperative, calm, reasonable. So I did exactly what he didn't expect. I read every word. The first document transferred partial ownership of a property we shared. The second reorganized investment accounts. And the third was beautiful. A marital settlement amendment, written by his lawyer, designed to protect him in case of disputes. Except for one thing. It required mutual consent to finalize asset separation. And by signing it before the divorce was finalized, Victor had legally acknowledged that I was still his spouse, with full marital rights, including the right to approve any remarriage-related financial restructuring. I didn't sign that night. I waited, because timing matters more than truth. 2 days later, Lena invited me to lunch. She was glowing. "We're finalizing everything," she said excitedly. "Victor says once the wedding's done, everything will be clean." Clean. That word again. I nodded and smiled. "That's wonderful," I said. "Have you signed the prenup yet?" She froze. "The what?" I tilted my head gently. "The prenup. Victor didn't mention it." Her smile faltered. "He said we'd talk about it later." I sipped my coffee. That was when I knew the ground was shifting. That same afternoon, Victor showed up at my door with printed documents. "I just need your signature," he said, impatient now. "The vendors are waiting." I looked at the papers slowly. Then I looked at him. "Are you sure this is everything?" I asked. "Yes," he snapped. "Just sign." So I did. Every page. With a steady hand. What Victor didn't realize was that by rushing me, he'd activated clauses that gave me temporary authority over joint financial decisions until the divorce was finalized, including the ability to freeze assets under dispute. Which I did. The next morning. Quietly. Legally. Completely. Victor found out when his card was declined at a jeweler. He called me furious. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I followed the agreement," I replied calmly. "The one you asked me to sign. You had no right." "I had every right," I interrupted. I'm still your wife. Silence. Then panic. By the end of the day, his accounts were under review. Large transfers were flagged. His lawyers stopped returning calls. And the wedding? It was still happening. Because I wanted it to. That night, Lena texted me again. Victor seemed stressed. Is this normal? I replied. Weddings bring out the truth in people. Don't worry. Everything reveals itself. And it would. Very soon. They thought the danger had passed. They thought the papers were done. They were wrong. Because the most important signature had already been given. And the ceremony hadn't even started yet. The wedding day arrived exactly on schedule. Clear skies. Soft music. A venue overlooking the water. From the outside, it was flawless. Victor stood at the altar in a tailored suit, calm and confident, shaking hands, laughing with guests who believed they were celebrating a fresh start. Lena walked down the aisle glowing. And me? I sat in the second row. Quiet. Composed. Exactly where I needed to be. People noticed me. Of course they did. Whispers floated behind fans and champagne glasses. Isn't that his ex? Why is she here? This is awkward. Lena caught my eye once, just before the ceremony began. I smiled at her. She smiled back. She still trusted me. The officiant spoke about love. About new beginnings. About honesty. Victor nodded along, relaxed. He had no idea. When the moment came for signatures, everything slowed down. The officiant handed Victor the folder first. He signed quickly without reading. Then Lena. Her hand trembled slightly as she signed. And then the officiant turned to me. Witness, he said. Victor frowned. What? He whispered. The witness, the officiant repeated. As requested. Victor turned to me sharply. I didn't. You did, I said softly, standing up. I walked forward. Took the pen. Signed my name. The room was still smiling. Still clapping. Still unaware that something irreversible had just happened. Because that signature did more than confirm a marriage. It finalized a legal timeline. One that locked Victor's finances in place before the divorce settlement could be altered. The reception began. Laughter. Music. Toasts. Victor tried to enjoy himself, but something had changed. He kept checking his phone. Messages from his lawyer. Missed calls. Voicemails. His smile grew tight. Halfway through the reception, he pulled me aside. What's going on? He hissed. I looked around at the dancing guests. Today is about love, I said gently. Let's not make a scene. His jaw clenched. You did something. I did exactly what you asked, I replied. Nothing more. Then Lena joined us. Is everything okay? She asked, worried now. Victor opened his mouth, and his phone rang. He answered it, listened, and went completely pale. His lawyer's voice was loud enough that I could hear pieces. Assets frozen. Marital status unchanged. Cannot proceed. Victor's hand shook. This is a mistake, he said into the phone. It wasn't. Lena looked between us. What's happening? She asked. Victor stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You planned this. I met his gaze calmly. No, I said. You did. The wedding continued. The cake was cut. Photos were taken. But the joy was gone. Because beneath the silk and flowers, the truth had already surfaced. Victor had married another woman, while still financially bound to me. And that meant one thing. Nothing he owned was free. That night, after the guests left, Victor finally confronted me alone. You ruined my life, he said, voice shaking. I shook my head slowly. I let you finish what you started. And the best part? It still wasn't over. Because the law had one more surprise waiting for him. Victor didn't sleep that night. I know because neither did I. At 6:12 a.m., my phone rang. It was his lawyer. Not Victor's voice. Not angry. Not panicked. Tired. Mrs. Hale, he said carefully, we need to speak. Immediately. I smiled. Of course, I replied. About the marriage or the assets? There was a long pause. Both. By the time Victor arrived at my apartment, he looked older. Wrinkled suit. Red eyes. No confidence left. Lena stayed behind. That told me everything. You knew, he said the moment he walked in. You knew the law better than I did. No, I corrected calmly. I respected it more. He ran his hands through his hair. The accounts are locked. The properties are under review. The business partners are pulling out. I poured myself coffee. And the court flagged the marriage, he snapped. They're questioning intent. Fraud. Financial manipulation. I finally looked at him. That's what happens when you try to erase a wife instead of divorcing her. He sat down heavily. I'll fix this, he said. We'll renegotiate. I'll give you a settlement. I laughed softly. For months you hid money. You lied. You rushed a wedding while still married. And now you want to negotiate. His voice cracked. What do you want? I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. My terms. Full financial disclosure. Majority settlement. Immediate divorce under my conditions. No contest. No retaliation. He stared at it. You planned this from the beginning. Yes, I said. From the moment you decided I didn't matter. His phone buzzed again. This time, Lena. He didn't answer. I watched the screen light up again. And again. What did you tell her? I asked. He swallowed. Nothing. That's not true, I said. You told her I was done. Gone. Harmless. He closed his eyes. She's threatening to leave, he whispered. She says she didn't sign up for this. I nodded slowly. She signed what you gave her. 2 hours later, Victor signed my agreement. No arguments. No theatrics. Just defeat. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. The assets were divided. The investigation quietly closed, because cooperation has benefits. Victor lost the house. Lost control of the company. Lost his reputation. But the worst loss came last. Lena left him. No announcement. No explanation. Just gone. She didn't want a man drowning in consequences. She wanted a clean future. The irony almost made me laugh. Months later, I ran into Victor by accident. He looked smaller. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. I thought about it. About the lies. The planning. The silence. Yes, I said. Because I didn't win by screaming. I won by letting you finish. People still ask me if I regret letting him marry another woman. I don't. Because that wedding wasn't the moment he started a new life. It was the moment he lost control of the old one. People think the worst punishment is losing money. It's not. Money can be earned again. What Victor never recovered from was something else. After the divorce was finalized, the world didn't collapse for him overnight. It eroded. Quietly. Partners stopped calling. Invitations stopped coming. His name stopped opening doors. Not because of scandal, but because of distrust. People in his world understood one thing very clearly. If a man could plan to erase his own wife, he could do it to anyone. I didn't need revenge. The truth did the work for me. Every document was legal. Every move justified. Every step clean. Which made it worse. Because there was nothing for him to fight. Lena reached out once. Just once. She sent a message I never replied to. Did you know he was still married when we signed everything? I read it. Then deleted it. Because by then, she already knew the answer. Months later, I heard Victor had sold what was left of his business. Not at a profit. At a loss. People say he drinks more now. Talks less. Smiles never. I wouldn't know. I stopped checking. As for me, I didn't celebrate. I didn't post quotes. I didn't announce victories. I rebuilt. Quietly. I moved into a smaller place by choice. Started a company under my own name. Signed contracts where no one underestimated me. For the first time in years, every signature on my life was mine. Someone once asked me, "Do you feel powerful?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "I feel free." The truth is, I never wanted to win against another woman. I wanted my life back. And I got it. Not by screaming. Not by begging. Not by fighting in public. But by letting the people who underestimated me finish the story they started. Victor thought the wedding was his escape. Lena thought it was her beginning. They were both wrong. It was the moment everything finally caught up with them. And me. I walked away with exactly what I wanted. My dignity. My future. And the quiet satisfaction of knowing this. The most dangerous woman isn't the one who reacts. It's the one who waits. I hadn't thought about Victor in months. Not because I was pretending to be strong, but because I genuinely didn't need to anymore. Then one afternoon I saw him. By accident. I was standing in line at a small cafe near my office, scrolling through emails, half aware of the world around me. Someone bumped into my shoulder lightly. "Sorry," a man said. I looked up. And there he was. Victor froze. For a second, neither of us spoke. He looked different. Not ruined. Not dramatic. Just smaller. Like someone whose life had slowly folded in on itself. "You look well," he said finally. "I am," I replied. And for the first time since everything ended, I realized it wasn't a lie. We stood there awkwardly, two people who once shared a life and now shared nothing but history. I didn't think I'd ever see you again, he said. That was kind of the point, I answered. He smiled faintly. Not bitter. Not angry. Tired. I used to think you were cold, he said quietly. That you didn't care. I met his eyes. No, I said. I cared too much to let you destroy me. That landed. I could see it. He hesitated, then asked the question I knew would come eventually. Do you ever regret it? The way it ended? I thought for a moment. No, I said. I regret the version of myself who thought love meant staying silent. He nodded slowly. I lost everything, he said. No, I replied calmly. You lost control. That's not the same thing. The barista called my name. I picked up my coffee, slung my bag over my shoulder. As I turned to leave, Victor said one last thing. You were always smarter than me. I stopped. Looked back. No, I said. I just stopped explaining myself. I walked out into the sunlight and felt something unexpected. Not victory. Not anger. Closure. People love stories where someone gets punished. But this story isn't about punishment. It's about alignment. About the moment you stop trying to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Victor went his way. I went mine. And that's the real ending. Not a courtroom. Not a wedding. Not revenge. But peace.